first. You know, back in middle school when they taught us it was 3 branches of the government. We forgot it when we got older. It's the judicial, the legislative, and executive. But all we know is the executive. That's the mayor or the governor and the president. Now none of them 3 people make no laws. They just be checking them. The laws come to their desk and all they do is say no or yes to it. So when the news station tried to tell us that Barack Obama couldn't put us on, we was all salty at Obama when it was the Congress members all along. We gotta focus on the legislative branch. Yeah, they the ones that make the laws. Yeah, they the ones write how much food stamp money you get on the card. But when people that wanted to help us wanted the job, I know they probably lost. Cause we ain't even know their name, we ain't know their face, we ain't know it all. So the Congress or the State House, that's legislative, they make laws. So what we want from the president is what they do. Okay, y'all? See, they election every 2 years, but we don't ever even go to those. The Congress, they can raise minimum wage, but we ain't even really know it though.
Get up, stand up, have a plan, check your status, yes you can. Get up, stand up, have a plan, check your status, yes you can. Your voice, your vote, your voice, your vote. It's your power. Stand up, have a plan, check your status, yes you can. Get up, stand up, have a plan, check your status, yes you can. Our voice, our vote, our voice, our vote. It's our power. It's our power. It's our power. It's our power. It's the social action shuffle. Yes, our social action shuffle. Do our social action shuffle. Join our social action shuffle. Use our power. Use our power. Let's use our power. Use our power. Let me hear you say, use our power. Use our power. Let's use our power. We've got to use our power and vote.
First thing first, you know, back in middle school when they taught us it was 3 branches of the government. We forgot it when we got older. It's the judicial, the legislative, and executive. But all we know is the executive. That's the mayor or the governor and the president. Now none of them 3 people make no laws. They just be checking them. The laws come to their desk and all they do is say no or yes to it. So when the news station tried to tell us that Barack Obama couldn't put us on, we was all salty at Obama when it was the Congress members all along. We gotta focus on the legislative branch. Yeah, they the ones that make the laws.
Well, as you just witnessed, SM-LAC, Stone Mountain Lithonia Alumni Chapter, have been in these social action streets doing the work. I hope you enjoyed that video. I am Dr. Johnny Cruz Craig, Social Action Chair for SM-LAC. I am also so excited about Season 3. If you didn't know, now you know there's a Season 1 and a Season 2. So now we are here to launch Season 3. So that was just a snippet of what we've been doing in these social action streets. You will have a chance to enjoy more at the conclusion. And please help me thank Yellow Pain, who is the musical genius behind that educational tool, the song you heard, as well as our very own Dion Simmons for her innovative rap skills that accompany our SM-LAC Social Action Shuffle. I'm sure you were smoothly moving to the beat. Now, welcome to Season 3 of these In These Social Action Streets Did You Know Civics 101 podcast series. We are so grateful you decided to tune in, and we ask that you share, invite, and engage. Also, please take action, capital ACT, as you hear actionable items throughout the upcoming upcoming discussion. The members of SM-LAC and our president, Candace Hole-Simon, we are so grateful that you decided to tune in, and we ask that you share, invite, and engage during the time you spend with us. Today, you will hear from a variety of SM-LAC members as we briefly share reflections about in these Social Action Streets podcast. How we got here, our present priorities and focus, where we're going, and how you can further get involved. I would like to welcome the following Saras to elevate our discussion. First, we will have our second vice president and chair of PPD, Shannon D. McCoy. Welcome, Sarah Shannon.
Thank you, Sarah Johnny.
Yes, next we will have our co-chair of physical and mental health, Miss Robin Hurd. Hey, Sarah Hurd.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, welcome. Next, we have our chair of economic development, Danetta Hicks.
Hi, Sarah Johnny.
Well, hello, welcome. Next, we have our hard-working chair, our committee member of social action. We have Sarah Lisa Manley. Welcome, Sarah Lisa.
Good evening, Soros.
Good evening. And now, drum roll, please. Woo! We have the best social action co-chairs on this side of hell, as they say. We have Sarah Dion Simmons and Sarah Shaniqua Mitchell.
Woo! Good evening. Hi, everyone, and welcome.
Welcome. We are so excited to be here to launch season 3. Y'all, we've truly been in these social action streets, and this season coming up is one that is very particularly focused on Civics 101. This being episode 1, all focused on credible resources. However, before we dig deep into credible resources, we want to highlight, and my dog is so excited, we want to highlight some of the stuff that we've done with our chairs and throughout our chapter. And to do that, I first want to ask our second vice president, who also serves as the PPD chair, her insight, her perspective on how important it is to get good information, right? How some of the community and some even the Saras in our chapter could, it could be not a good thing to get misinformed information. So I want her to speak to how it's good to come to program and get information, how we do that. And then she'll pass it to our chairs, and then it'll be our co-chairs and our social action member if they choose to speak. And we're going to move into the credible resources, okay? So now at this time, I will invite Sarah Shannon D. McCoy to bring us some information about being informed and having credible resources, and how we're doing that within SM-LAC. Sorry, Shannon.
Thank you, Johnny. A good day again, community, family, friends. I've seen as chair of program planning and development that when people are misinformed and they don't receive the correct information, there's just a range of negative consequences at the individual and societal level. On the individual level, people can make some very poor decisions, right? They can make choices that are not in their best interest. We're living in that. It could be their own best interest, their family, the community, the society at large. It could be related to health, finances, relationships, or whatever that thing may be. It also can lead to increased stress and anxiety. And we're living that right now, constantly being exposed to false narratives, and that kind of leads to fear mongering, and that elevates stress, cortisol levels, and contribute to anxiety, like I said before. There's also, on the societal level, erosion of trust in our government institutions, in our subject matter experts. And then what happens is conspiracy theorists come up and get things popping on social media, gets to spreading lies, and it's very difficult to overcome that. So we must be against spreading false information. And so with that, I'd like to invite the chair of physical and mental health, Robin Hurd, to kind of talk about that more in depth and how SM-LAC programming combats that.
Good evening again. When people are misinformed, physical and mental health is definitely impacted. The answer to everything is prayer heals everything. They're making poor decisions. They're not taking care of themselves mentally, physically. They're not eating right. They're not going to the doctor. They're not taking medication. And it just affects them overall. It causes anxiety and stress, and it's not good for them at all.
We'll now hear there. Thank you,
Go
Sarah
ahead,
Jane. I
sis.
was going to invite our Economic Development Chair, Sarah Danetta Hicks, to come up.
Greetings and good evening, Soros. Listen, misinformation can impact the communities from an economic development perspective with investment decisions. Misinformation can lead to misguided preconceptions about the economic stability and growth for potential communities. For example, if a potential investor are misled by false information regarding local market conditions or infrastructure or workforce capabilities, they may choose to invest elsewhere. That hinders job creations, economic growth. How about consumer behavior? Misinformation can affect consumer confidence in spending. For instance, inaccurate reports about the community's economic health can lead to residents curtailing spending. Local small business can be impacted. Just overall, you'll see that bottom line impact in the economy. We're talking about public policy and government. It can influence public opinion and lead to pressures on local governments to implement misguided policies, just to name a few. It's really important that our community gets good information and the facts.
That's really great. Thank you all for those pointers. And it just drives home the message that the good information leads to you making good decisions. And just to give it a social action spin, one of the things that always stood out to me as we were out there trying to get people registered to vote is how many people say, I'm already registered. I'm already registered. And when we have them check their registration status, some of them have found out that they dropped off the voter registration rolls. Why? Because they didn't vote in maybe the previous 2 elections, and they were not aware that if they didn't vote in the previous 2 elections, they would be dropped and kicked off the rolls. That's just one example of how misinformation leads to people making, again, poor decisions. So I just wanted to share that from a social action perspective. And I'm actually going to ask our other co-chair, Sora Shaniqua, to share again, also from a social action perspective.
Thank you, Sora Dion. And so another perspective that I can offer up is an informed voter is a powerful voter, and a powerful voter is a confident voter. From my experience, many members of our community, they don't feel confident in the power of their vote. That's why it's crucial that we get the resources, the credible resources and information to the members of our community so that when they walk into those voting booths, they feel so confident about the power of their vote that they feel like they're making a difference on that day in that moment. And that's very, very powerful.
Yes, thank you so much to each of you for sharing your insight as to why being informed, knowing where to get credible resources, but even understanding why misinformation can lead you down a whole rabbit hole. So we are here in this space to bring forth credible resources, to bring forth subject matter experts, to bring forth conversationalists and panelists that know what they're talking about. And we would love to give you sources. We will share some sources throughout this podcast series. So that's why we're here. And I'm so glad that we in our chapter have learned how to really collaborate and work together throughout our 5 programmatic thrusts with, like you see, the economic development committees here, physical and mental health. We've also worked with international awareness and involvement. We work with educational development. Why? Because we know how important it is that whatever lens that we're talking about throughout our podcast series, throughout the work in the chapter, we have to always keep a social action lens. So that's why we're here to talk about credible resources in all of our programming, but also and specifically credible resources in this social action climate in what we're living today. So without further ado, I want to thank everyone for that wonderful reflection time. So grateful that you did that. Hang around. We're going to move into the credible discussion and go a little deeper there. And sorry, Dion is going to kick that up. In the meantime, we're going to transition here on off stage and on stage, and then we'll go through that discussion. We're going to bring back some of our leadership that's here with us now. Leadership, you can wave to the people. Thank y'all for joining us. We'll see y'all back as we get ready to close out. Sorry, Dion, it's on you.
Thank you so very much. Well, thank you again to our listeners for being here. We're now turning our attention to the discussion on basic civics, civics 101, if you will. So we're going to be talking about things like what it means to register to vote. What does it mean to actually look at the ballot and what's on the ballot? How do you read the ballot? But today's topic, what we're going to discuss today, is actually about credible news sources. So ladies, either Sora Shaniqua or Sora Lisa or Sora Johnny, can one of you share how that ties in, credible news sources? How does that tie in with our civics series?
I will speak to that, Sarah Dion. Thank you so much. That's a great question. And many people are unaware of how the political landscape affects their daily lives and their future. I mean, we're in these social action streets. We're out here engaging. We're helping people to, check their voter registration, to go to the site to vote if they need to, and just understanding what elections are coming up. And if you don't know, we've learned that a lot of people just don't know. For example, we have the Public Service Commission vote coming up. A lot of people don't know that that's coming up. So I think it's very, very, very important in this landscape for us to understand how it affects our lives and their future. Also, they may not know how an amendment will affect their household, but they are familiar with well-known newspapers such as the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. Sarah Lisa, do you have anything else you would like to share in that space?
Well, you know what, Sora Johnny, I think you've raised some excellent points. But not only that, but think, if their only source of information is a newspaper or the television, they're missing out or they can be misinformed. And then depending on what stories are shared or what details are covered, they're not getting all the information. They don't have the facts. You know, back in the day, we used to call that news bias.
Sarah, Shanique, we're going to unmute, and you're going to share some things with us about news bias.
Yes, I'd like to share a little bit about news bias. Thank you, Sora Johnny. I don't think there's anything called unbiased news. However, there are several organizations that tend to lean to one side of the political spectrum or the other. And that determines how they tend to spin the information that they're putting out there. For example, MSNBC and the New York Times, they're often considered to be more progressive and left-leaning in favor of the Democratic Party. Now, we also have Fox News and the New York Post, which are often considered more conservative and right-leaning in favor of the Republican Party. And so those are examples of the way that we kind of receive our information, but it has a little bit of a spin on it. So you have to kind of look into that and glean from it what you will.
I like what you said there, Sarah Shaniqua. And if I can, I would just like to add this perspective as well. I think it's very important that we absorb information from sources that share your political views and from sources that have views that are from the opposite end of the spectrum. Like, we tend to gravitate to sites that share our values and our politics, which is absolutely normal and natural. However, when we check out what the other side is sharing, you would be and have a different, more well-rounded perspective of how certain issues are viewed. Think about it. It might cause you to investigate further, ask more questions, or even change your views. Really think about that for a minute. If you took the moment to truly listen to something that you don't particularly agree with, you are putting yourself in a space to be shifted, right? You're putting yourself in a space to receive new information, to put with the information that you already know, to help you get deeper in your understanding, which we know often leads us to move with more wisdom and understanding. But that's for another conversation for another day. Okay. So with that being said, we need to ask more questions and we need to change our views. Sarah Dion, do you have anything else particularly to say around that?
Absolutely. I think you made some really great points there. And I will just throw my little tidbit in there that SM-LAC, nor is Delta Sigma Theta partisan in any way, shape, or form. So we are a nonpartisan organization. And so our chapter absolutely is as well, which means we encourage people to do exactly what you said. Check out all sources of information. But the thing with that is that some of the news, the quote unquote news, is often opinion and it's not actual factual information. So the sources, though, don't specify that what they're sharing is opinion based. So when you hear it, instead of you hearing, well, this is just an opinion that I have, it's being presented as if it's factual information. And that's what leads to some of the misinformation. I had a conversation with my husband about news bias. And what he mentioned to me was that he's seen some individuals get more scrutiny than others, while the actions of some were not properly fact checked. Think about that. That's what happens on a regular basis.
Wow, that's pretty enlightening there. Thank you, Sora Dion. And so fact checking is definitely one aspect of building and maintaining credibility in reporting. We hear so much about this fake news and, which is a hot button phrase often used to turn people against certain media. The thing is that media today is not the same as previous generations. Generally, the news was provided in the newspaper, on the radio, or on the television. Today, you have blogs, you have podcasts, YouTube channels, Facebook shows, and other social media platforms to add to the mix. And everyone presents themselves as a passionate expert.
Yes, and that leads to the confusion. What were you going to say, Sora Shaniqua?
I was just going to say, but you have to be able to do your research and make sure that your resources are credible and that they're giving you facts, not opinions.
So that leads to the question then, how do you know which news sources are credible enough to engage with? How do we know?
Well, I think, as an educator and just as a person that's interested and read a lot, we have to vet the information, right?
Yeah.
We have to understand what that looks like. We can't just go with any and everything that come out. We have to take the time to really see the source, where it's coming from. You can start with a Google search. Sometimes you can put something in a Google search and it'll come up and tell you not right information.
True.
But sometimes you can't stop there. You have to keep going and you have to continue to vet. And when you find sources that are credible, that make sense, then that's what you start following. And then you know that you're getting fed good information, credible information. So, Sora Dion, anything else you want to add there?
Absolutely. So to what you mentioned, the sources also need to cite who they're getting their information from. Do they cite their sources? Mm-hmm. Can you verify that information with another reputable source? So I found several videos that speak to biased media reporting and how to vet these sources. Let's look at one of those now, Sora Johnny.
With digital tools, it is easier than ever to create, edit, and publish your work to the world. But there's a cost. It's also easier than ever to spread misinformation, and fake news has become a real issue in recent times. We see this with students. According to a Stanford study, only 25% of high school students were able to identify an accurate news story compared to a fake one. Students also had a hard time distinguishing between real and fake photographs, as well as authentic and staged videos. Researchers use the words bleak and dismaying to describe this, but it's not going away anytime soon, and that's a very real problem. So how do we fix it? Well, here's a 5-step process that I've used with students. A word of caution, it's not perfect and there are probably other models out there, but I thought I would share it just in case you might want to use it. We call it the 5 C's of critical consuming. Number 1, context. Look at the context of the article. When was it written? Where does it come from? Have the events changed since then? Is there any new information that could change your perspective? Number 2, credibility. Check the credibility of the source. Does the site have a reputation for journalistic integrity? Does the author cite credible sources? Is it satirical? Is it on the list of fake news sites? Is it actually an advertisement posing as a real news story? Number 3, construction. Analyze the construction of the article. What is the bias? Are there any loaded words, any omissions, any propaganda techniques? Can you distinguish between the facts and the opinions? Or is it merely a bunch of speculation? Number 4, corroboration. Corroborate the information with other credible news sources. Make sure it's not the only source making this claim. And if it is, there's a good chance it's not actually true. Number 5, compare. Compare it to other news sources to get a different perspective. Find other credible sources from other areas of the ideological or political spectrum to provide nuance and get a bigger picture of what's actually going on. When we teach students media literacy and they learn how to consume critically, they learn how to think critically. And critical thinking citizens are good for democracy. And that, well, that's good for everyone.
Wow, consume critically. So there you have it. Fact checking, citing sources, making sure you know whether it's actual news reporting or opinion based. Consume it with a critical eye. One thing I like to do is ask my friends and family where they get their news. And sometimes I check it against the media bias chart to see how organizations stack up. Here's an example.
Oh, wow. Look at that. That's a great idea. You know, as we discussed, everyone that's listening, we might want to consider consuming news from both ends of the spectrum. So this chart really helps to identify that, because on the chart itself, you're seeing an axis on the from left to right, and then from top to bottom. So from left to right, what it's showing you are the news sources that would be considered more left-leaning, meaning that they're more progressive, versus those that would be more right-leaning, meaning that they're more conservative. And then from top to bottom, what it's showing you is which ones are really reputable, which ones cite their sources, which ones say that they're actually giving you news versus which ones are giving you opinion. And then as you get towards the bottom, those are the ones that really are what you consider to be fake news. So you got to really look at this information and vet and see, what am I really getting out of this? What am I really getting out of this when I click on that link, when I click on that source? That's really, really good. We have another video also to share about identifying credible sources and showing how accurate and reliable those sources may be. So, Johnny, can you play that for us as well?
How can I identify credible news sources? In a world overflowing with information, it can be challenging to determine which news sources you can trust. Imagine scrolling through your social media feed and coming across a headline that grabs your attention. You might feel compelled to click, but how do you know if what you are about to read is accurate? Today, we will discuss some practical steps to help you identify credible news sources. First, consider the reputation of the news organization. Established outlets with a long history of journalism often have editorial standards and fact-checking processes in place. Look for organizations that are known for their commitment to accuracy and integrity in reporting. Next, examine the author of the article. A credible news piece should be written by a journalist or expert with relevant qualifications or experience in the subject matter. Research the author's background to see if they have a history of reliable reporting. Another important factor is the presence of citations and references. Credible articles often link to original sources or provide data to support their claims. If an article makes bold statements without backing them up, it may be a sign that the information is not trustworthy. Additionally, pay attention to the language used in the article. Sensationalized headlines or emotionally charged language can indicate a lack of objectivity. Reliable news sources typically strive for neutrality and present information in a balanced manner. It is also wise to check for bias. Every news organization has its own perspective, but credible sources aim to present multiple viewpoints. Look for articles that acknowledge differing opinions and provide context rather than simply pushing a single narrative. Lastly, cross-reference information with other reputable sources. If you find the same story reported consistently across various credible outlets, it is more likely to be accurate. This practice helps you to verify facts and gain a broader understanding of the topic. By applying these strategies, you can become more discerning in your consumption of news and better equipped to identify credible sources. Remember, being informed is a responsibility, and taking the time to evaluate the information you encounter can lead to a more informed perspective on current events.
Those are all great points, and I am happy to share that our Social Action Committee has done some great work to create a list of credible news sources based on these videos and other reliable articles and sources who have been in the political arena for a long time. We would love to add to this list, so listeners, give us a hand. Send us your credible news source to socialaction@smlacdst.org. We'll vet it and add it to our list, which will be available via SM-LAC's Linktree real soon.
Valuable information source, Shaniqua. And this demonstrates why it's important to stay informed and to have a broad perspective of the news that's presented. It also highlights the fact that many people rely on news to give them answers to topics in which they may not be well versed.
Mhm.
I've heard numerous conversations with people who were not aware even how our government works, or they've told me they voted, but they didn't realize the topics on the ballots. They didn't even know some of the candidates, what offices they were running for, or what their positions on different critical issues. So now all of this means that unless they see the information on the news, however they consume their news, they won't be aware and they won't have the facts.
That is so good, Sora Lisa. And that's exactly why our current podcast series, Civics 101, is so, so, so important. This is a great segue to share with our listeners that the next few episodes of our podcast will address exactly that. How our government works, why it's important to vote, what to look for on the ballot, how to stay engaged after you vote, and more. So, Shaniqua, that is exactly what your subcommittee is working on currently for social action. Can you share a sneak peek of what's next for our listening audience?
Sure thing, Sora Dion. The subcommittee has been doing amazing work. There are episodes such as The Power of Your Vote with members of the National Council of Negro Women. There's an episode on Who Are We Employing with the Honorable Donna McLeod, which talks about members of the political spectrum or our elected officials and who does what and what power rests within certain individuals in government. And we have additionally about two more upcoming episodes. So stay tuned, subscribe, and share.
Yes, thank you to all the listeners still hanging out here. We appreciate you for coming to the launch of season 3. Thank you to the co-chairs, Sarah Shaniqua and Dion, and our hard-working committee chair, Sarah Lisa. I do want to bring back the leaders of our chapter that started this conversation with us. So I'm going to bring back Sarah Shannon, Sarah Hurd, Sarah Danetta. Welcome back. We hope that even in the midst of the credible resources part of this podcast, that something resonated with you all as well. And so I just want to thank you as we get ready to encourage everyone to follow us every Thursday for the next 5 weeks. This is episode 1. You have episode 2, 3, 4, and 5 coming forth back to back every Thursday at 8:00 p.m. So as we get ready to go into another little video showing you SM-LAC in the what, y'all? In these what?
Social action streets.
In these social action streets. But before we go, we want to thank our second vice president and PPD chair, Shannon McCoy. One more time. Thank you, Sarah, Shannon.
Thank you.
All right. We also want to thank our chair of economic development, Danetta Hicks. Thank you, Sarah Danetta, for bringing forth the economic development knowledge. You thought you weren't going to get a client.
I'm mad you didn't tell us to bring our fan.
I'm going to stay focused.
I'm mad you didn't tell us to bring our fan.
All right. Sarah Hurd, we thank you for representing as co-chair for physical and mental health tonight, bringing forth that perspective. Thank you. Again, Sarah Manley, we appreciate you for working hard on the back end. And to our co-chairs, Shaniqua and Dion, thank you. And y'all know how we do it in SM-LAC. Before it was boots on the ground, we were saying what? I am social action.
You are social action.
And
we are social action.
Hey, all right, y'all enjoy us as you see us in the social action street.
First, you know, back in middle school when they taught us it was 3 branches of the government. We forgot it when we got older. It's the judicial, the legislative, and executive. But all we know is the executive. That's the mayor or the governor and the president. Now none of them 3 people make no laws. They just be checking them. The laws come to their desk and all they do is say no or yes to it. So when the news station tried to tell us that Barack Obama couldn't put us on, we was all salty at Obama when it was the Congress members all along. We gotta focus on the legislative branch. Yeah, they the ones that make the laws. Yeah, they the ones write how much food stamp money you get on the card. But when people that wanted to help us wanted the job, I know they probably lost. Cause we ain't even know their name, we ain't know their face, we ain't know it all. So the Congress or the State House, that's legislative, they make laws. So what we want from the president is what they do. Okay, y'all? See, they election every 2 years, but we don't ever even go to those. The Congress, they can raise minimum wage, but we ain't even really know it though.
Get up, stand up, have a plan, check your status, yes you can. Get up, stand up, have a plan, check your status, yes you can. Your voice, your vote, your voice, your vote. It's your power. Stand up, have a plan, check your status, yes you can. Get up, stand up, have a plan, check your status, yes you can. Our voice, our vote, our voice, our vote. It's our power. It's our power. It's our power. It's our power. It's the social action shuffle. Yes, our social action shuffle. Do our social action shuffle. Join our social action shuffle. Use our power. Use our power. Let's use our power. Use our power. Let me hear you say, use our power. Use our power. Let's use our power. We've got to use our power and vote.